Konnichiwa. That's a greeting in Japanese. Thanks for joining me again today, where we're going to be talking about whether you need a human translator or can you use machine translation. I'm Wendy Pease of Rapport International, where we connect you to anyone, anywhere in the world through high quality translation in over 200 languages. Join us every Thursday at 11:30 East Coast time in the morning as we go live to discuss translation trends, questions, cultural fun facts, and global marketing. And if you're here, put it in chat. Tell me where you're tuning in from. And if you have any questions, also put them in there and I'll answer them during the broadcast. There has been tremendous leaps in AI and NLP and machine translation. And so a lot of people are wondering, can I use this for my translation? Now, the answer is a very clear, it depends. It works well for if you need something quick and cheap and fast because you've got to get an answer to something. So, a gritty translation, you pop it into Google Translate and you're going to figure out what it says. Like if you get an email and you don't know what it is and you're trying to figure out if you actually need to respond, that's good. Another good use is if you have a large volume of material in other languages. So, for example, a legal case where you don't know which of the files contains information that would be pertinent to the case. Run that through machine translation, and then you can figure out what is pertinent. You can pull that out, and then you can have a human translator do it to make sure you get the really important stuff done. It's good in social situations. I heard of a couple that were from different countries, different native languages, and occasionally they'd pull it out and play around with it when they're trying to communicate something that might not have been culturally clear. Machine translation or AI is really good where there'd be no language support. So, say you're in a taxi or you go to a conference like Comic-Con, where there typically wouldn't be translation, but you want to follow along what's going on. That's a fine use because you don't have any other alternative. It's also good if you're using it in places where if you make a mistake, there's no liability. You can take that risk and see if your message gets across. Or you can use it if it's not going to affect your top line. You don't want it to affect your bottom line from your risk or your top line from your revenue. Okay, so where does that leave us? Where do you want to use human translation? If you're doing any marketing, like your websites, your landing pages, content that you're creating through your buyer's journey, sales material, packaging, package inserts, user manuals, anything in marketing that can affect your top line. And you want to be clear. Just imagine you go to a website that has used machine translation. You look at it and you go, this just doesn't sound right. You might not be able to put a reason why, but you're going to click away from it because it doesn't really pull you in and grab your attention. And with our short attention spans now, you're better off doing a good landing page or a microsite and doing the content that your buyers are looking for and keeping it high quality. If you're doing anything legal that counts, so you have contracts, if you're doing discovery, if you're doing patent filings, if you're doing depositions, you're going to want to get somebody in. So anything legal, because that's your liability. Anything on the technical side of your business, like CE marks, which are the safety marks that you need for going into Europe, your user manuals, particularly if you can endanger somebody. These are cases where you really want to use a human translator that is fully bilingual in the source and target languages so they understand what's going on. They're also going to culturally adapt it. So if something you say in the source language doesn't make sense, you can also, they can get back to you and tell you that it doesn't make sense. So you can modify it for the audience that you're trying to talk to. Okay, how about machine translation with post-human editing? That's an interesting one. Any of the human translators that are qualified and experienced and trained in how to do it, they go, this is not good enough quality. It's easier to throw it out and start over. But if you have a lot of content, or you're using content over and over again that would have slight changes, you can use translation memory and then have somebody review it to make sure it's complete. But using a machine to translate it and then have a human come in afterwards could cause problems because it's still going to cause clunky rather than having it cleanly produced for the audience to completely understand. Now, there have been some legal cases where people have used machine translations and it's led to liability cases. There was a police incident where it wasn't clear as to what the police were telling the person that they had pulled over, and they tried to use machine translation. It wasn't clear, and there was a legal case against them. In a hospital, there was a case where they didn't have a professional translator or interpreter to assist, and they misdiagnosed a high school athlete who could have been saved, but they gave the wrong diagnosis because they just didn't understand. And they unfortunately passed away. And so there was a case against that. And then there's all sorts of statistics about lost business with incorrect translations, misunderstandings, people spending too much time on email trying to figure out what it says so they're not productive. So you really do have to be thoughtful about where you're using machine translation or a human translator. Now, if you don't know already, I wrote the book called The Language of Global Marketing. And here I give some frameworks about how you think about your content and what you should use machine translation for and what you want to make sure you're getting a high quality translation. There are also tons of words that don't have a direct translation from one language to another. And so if you pop some of these words into Google Translate, you'll get some interesting things back. I got a whole list of them here. Let's see. Amberbos is a word in South Africa from Trevor Noah's book, Born a Crime. And it means that are Black people who are almost white, they're almost there. Google says barely a boss. So it doesn't capture the meaning on that. There's hygge, which is the Danish word for something that's really cozy. You're snuggled up by the fire and reading a good book, or you're taking a bath with candles and bubbles. You put it into Google and it says fun. This is one of my favorites. It's a Finnish word, kausurikanit. It means you're drunk at home in your underwear and there's no way you're going out. So it really captures a moment. You put that into Google Translate and it says buttocks. So I've got pages and pages of these words that don't have direct translation. So you really have to be careful, with anything that's going to affect your top line or increase your risk and liability. If you love information like this, make sure you follow me on all the social medias. If you find any fun language mistakes or cultural facts, send them over to me. Love to share them. And if you want to hear from other people besides me, I host the Global Marketing Show podcast. You can just search for Global Marketing Show and go in there and hear from people who are actually doing global business and hear what they have to say. So thank you so much for joining me. If you have questions, put them in the chat. Love to know who's here and listening, and we'll catch up with you later. Thanks so much. Gracias. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, or you can keep watching. And don't miss out on new posts by subscribing to our channel. And if you want to talk to Rapport International about all your translation and interpretation needs, or about growing your business into new markets, use the link below for a free 30-minute consultation.